A section-by-section walkthrough of California Form FL-195, Income Withholding for Support, the order that directs an employer to deduct child or spousal support directly from a paycheck. What is Form FL-195? Form FL-195 is the California Judicial Council form titled Income Withholding for Support. It is served on an employer, called the income withholder on the form, and tells that employer who the employee, paying parent or spouse, is, how much current support to withhold from each paycheck, whether an additional amount should be withheld toward past due support, where the withheld money should be sent. FL-195 is California's implementation of the income withholding process used nationwide to enforce support orders through payroll, which is why the form's format and many of its instructions will look consistent from one state to another. How FL-195 fits with a support order. FL-195 is not a standalone request. It follows from an underlying order that already establishes a support amount, most commonly Form FL-342, Child Support Order Attachment, or a comparable spousal support order or judgment. If you're not yet familiar with how that underlying order is built, our guide on how to fill out Form FL-342 walks through it in detail. Because FL-195 simply carries out what the court already ordered, the numbers on it need to match the underlying order exactly. If the support order changes later, whether through a modification or a new judgment, a new or amended FL-195 generally needs to be issued and served, so the employer withholds the correct current amount. Paying through the state disbursement unit. In most California support cases, withheld income is not sent directly to the recipient parent or spouse. Instead, it is generally sent to the California State Disbursement Unit, SDU, the state's centralized office for collecting and dispersing support payments. The SDU then forwards the payment to the person who is owed support. Routing payments this way has a practical benefit for both sides. It creates an official, time-stamped record of every payment, which matters if there is ever a dispute later about whether or when support was paid. FL-195 includes the information an employer needs to send payments to the SDU correctly, so double-check that remittance information is filled in and legible before the form is served. Section-by-section walkthrough of FL-195. Here's what you'll actually see and complete on the form. Case and party information. At the top of the form, you'll enter the county, case number, and the names of the parties, including the employee, the parent or spouse who owes support, and the person or agency to whom support is owed. This information needs to match your existing case exactly. Employer, income withholder, information. This section identifies the employer who will actually carry out the withholding, full legal business name, address, and, where applicable, the specific department or contact the employer uses for processing income withholding orders. Many larger employers have a dedicated payroll or garnishment processing address that is different from their general business address. Support amounts to withhold. This is the financial core of the form. It generally separates into current support, past due support, arrears, and other amounts. Each figure here must trace back to the underlying support order. If you need a refresher on how income and expenses are documented for support purposes in the first place, see our guide on how to fill out Form FL-150. Remittance instructions. This section tells the employer where to send the withheld money, generally the state disbursement unit, along with any case or payment identifiers the SDU needs to apply the payment correctly. Signature and certification. The form is signed and dated by the person or agency issuing the order, certifying that the amounts and information are consistent with the underlying support order. Limits on how much an employer can withhold. Employers cannot simply withhold every dollar of a paycheck to satisfy a support order. Federal and California wage garnishment law caps the percentage of an employee's disposable earnings that can be withheld for support, even when there are significant arrears owed. The specific withholding percentage limits are listed on the order itself and can vary depending on factors like whether the employee is supporting another family and how much, if any, past due support exists. Confirm current limits with the issuing agency, the SDU, or a county superior court self-help center rather than relying on a remembered percentage. Serving FL-195 on the employer. FL-195 only works if it actually reaches the employer and is served correctly. In practice, that generally means confirming the employer's correct legal name and mailing or fax address for income withholding orders, serving the completed FL-195 through the method required for your case, generally by mail or delivery to the employer's designated payroll or legal contact, keeping proof that the order was served in case the employer disputes receiving it, following up to confirm the employer has begun withholding within the time frame the order requires. Employers generally have a limited window to begin withholding once they receive a properly served order, so following up promptly matters. Common mistakes to avoid. Support amounts on FL-195 that don't match the underlying support order, such as FL-342, exactly. Using an outdated or informal employer name and address instead of the employer's correct legal name and payroll contact. Not accounting for past due support, arrears, separately from current support. Failing to properly serve the employer or serving the wrong department within a large company. Forgetting to issue a new FL-195 after the paying parent changes jobs, assuming the recipient parent is paid directly rather than through the state disbursement unit. If keeping track of all of this by hand feels like a lot, that is exactly what Virdix is built for. The wizard at Virdix.co walks you through these same questions in plain language and prepares your FL-195 for you. Virdix is a document preparation service, not a law firm, so this is not legal advice, but it can help make sure your paperwork is complete and consistent from the start.